We have two teams who haven't lost a single game all year playing for state championships this week in Mart and Oglesby, two Central Texas teams. Yet both are underdogs in their matchups. Let's start with Mart first, even though that'll be the second game that we cover. So the Panthers will face number one ranked Albany in Thursday's Class 2A Division II state championship game. This, of course, is the same Albany team, not the same Albany team, but the same program they faced last year.
Same two schools in the final.
Yeah, same two schools. They beat, and remember that one was viewed as a monumental upset, but it was 41-21 Albany. So what do you think? Could payback? Could that be the factor that pushes Mart over the hump this time?
I don't think it will be. I think the intangibles matter less in this game. People talk. I think sports fans think a lot about intangibles because they're like, well, if we got this intangible and we got that intangible, and that means we're going to win. You talk yourself into if your team has a chance to win going in, right? But I feel like for Mart, it's simple. You have to stop Adam Hill. I mean, you gotta contain him. You gotta contain him and maybe make them beat you passing the ball. And if you can't do that, it's going to be a long day. I mean, stopping the run is such a hard thing to do for a football team, and some of the best teams around don't do it. The Kansas City Chiefs haven't stopped a running back for less than 4 yards this whole season, I don't think. But it's important. You got to be able to do it.
Spoken like a guy who's watched a lot of Chiefs games. DJ, I mean, do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be the biggest thing on their minds. I actually went out to Mart this morning and was talking to Coach Hoffman about it. And for sure, their biggest priority is slowing them down. Like because I asked him, what they expected and what I guess they would have to do in order to beat them. And it really was like they're going to try to slow them down. Like that's the biggest thing that they're working on. And Mart's at this point in the season, they're more than a little banged up. I'm pretty sure those kids have been sitting in ice buckets the entire weekend. And I they got to get their guys, their running game going, and they got to get their, the things that they do well, they have to keep doing well while also trying to stop Albany. And not just Adam Hill. Like Adam, obviously he's the priority because he's the big guy. He's the Texas Tech commit, as Chad has pointed out every day this week.
2,500 rushing yards.
Yeah, which is a big thing for a 2A school, you going to a D1 program. But they have other guys.
I was just looking at his rivals. He has an offer from La Tech, and then he'll be a preferred walk-on at Texas Tech. So, he's a 2A kid with a legit D1 offer, and then gonna choose to be a PWO at Texas Tech.
Okay, so. Interesting.
Now you mentioned slow them down, and I get that, and with slowing down, I think you have to be able to get off the field in a reasonable amount of time because. To me, and I've watched a lot of Mart games, the most demoralizing thing for Mart, I mean, for anybody, but this happens to Mart sometimes, is that the other team runs for 6 yards, and they run for 8 yards, and they run for 4 yards, and they run for 7 yards, and they just go all the way down the field, and Mart doesn't get a chance to do what Mart likes to do, which is lightning quick chunk plays and score in a hurry. The other team just holds the ball the whole time, and the 11 guys that are out there the whole time from Mart start to get worn down a little bit. And, they got to slow them down, but they also got to get off the field. They got to maybe slow them down on their side of the 50 some of the time.
Yeah. And the guys that DJ mentioned that are banged up in the ice bath, pretty key guys, aren't they? We're talking about DeMontrell. Wasn't he banged up last week?
DeMontrell, JD Bell. Several of their linemen. Yeah, it's uh, I think it's definitely going to be one of those like gritty games where, you know, the team that has it last is going to win if Mart does what they're hoping to do. Because if they let Albany, you know, take off, then it's going to be another 20-point loss like it was last year. But I think they're extra motivated. Like you mentioned, you know, you can't rely on intangibles, but they are extra motivated, being that they lost to this team last year, right? And this group of seniors has not won a state championship. This is the third time that they've been there. They lost the semifinal, I think 2 years ago. And, you know, when they were in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, they were watching Mart win state championships, and no, this is their last try and they haven't been able to win one. So they're going to be motivated. They're going to be gritty. And really it just is trying to stop Albany from, you know, taking off and holding onto the ball, and, you know, try not to let their injuries and their, you know, wear them down. Because Hoffman was pretty adamant that they're not going to let that be an excuse.
So, there's an old expression. Sometimes it's more about the Jimmies and Joes than it is about the X's and O's. But you know what I would say to that? Sometimes it's a little about both. It's about who you are and what you got inside you and all that. But it's also about execution and making the plays and getting the stops and getting off the field, like Chad said. But let's face it, if Mart does win, what are they going to say in that post-game press conference? They're going to say, nobody believed in us. You know, we were the underdog. I mean, you know, and sometimes that's what you need, is that feeling of us against the world.
You know,
Go ahead.
I thought of something interesting just now. 3 years ago, we're doing stories on Mart and Rodwell Freeman and those guys that were trying to win their fourth in the row, win one every year. Now we're talking about seniors that haven't won one yet, that are wanting to get one, you know. So I'm not saying, you know, that's that big motivating factor, but that's definitely on those kids' minds. And they've won a lot of games, but I know Armando Chavez doesn't want those 352 extra points to go for naught, you know.
Absolutely.